Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin, I am a geek and you are watching Kevin the Geek. Welcome back if you are a returning viewer, welcome to the channel if you are new. Today it is time for my new Doctor Who review for Utopia. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. I do get a lot of people watching my videos but not actually subscribing, to the point that it's probably like less than 10% of people who are actually subscribed who watch my videos. So please do subscribe to the channel. You know, we've just recently hit 250 subscribers and that's in only about 6 months of doing videos, so I am really chuffed. I would love to have more of you commenting down below and kind of interacting with me, because it gives me new ideas for videos and it just helps me connect with you absolutely wonderful people. So keep it up and keep doing more. But today we are reviewing Utopia. Now, if you haven't seen any of my previous videos, what I will say is that I review Doctor Who videos by combining multi-part stories. So, for example, the episode earlier this season, Human Nature and the Family of Blood, I did that in one review. This is going to be a controversial one, but I don't consider Utopia to be part of a 3-part story. I know it technically is, and it does immediately precede the 2-part finale, at least in my view, but I feel that this has enough of its own elements to make it a standalone story, and so it is for that reason it is being done as a solo episode. So, the first thing we have to talk about, of course, is Sir Derek Jacobi, the man who played the wonderful, charming and eccentric Professor Yana, whilst also the cold, manipulative, cunning master. If you had to choose an actor who could play both of those two types of characters, I don't think you would have done much better in going for Derek Jacobi. It would be interesting to see what other actors could have done with it. Like, one that really springs to mind would be someone like Anthony Hopkins. I think he would be really interesting to have done something like this. Alan Rickman would have been brilliant at doing this sort of duo role, and a number of other actors as well. But we got Derek Jacobi, and this was his masterpiece. Pun intended there. He just did everything so brilliantly in this episode, and at the time that I first watched it, my master knowledge wasn't very extensive. I vaguely had heard of the name and the term, so when it was revealed to be the Master with that haunting whisper, it wasn't a complete brain fart moment. Like, if I introduced someone brand new, like my best friend, who's not really a Doctor Who fan, and you said to him, "This is the Master," he probably wouldn't have a clue who you're going on about. At least I had enough of a sense as to who the Master was. I knew that he was a really bad person and he was another Time Lord. Beyond that, I didn't know anything, and so it was a shock seeing Derek Jacobi play this complete opposite of this character that he'd been playing for the previous, 40 or so minutes. And I think that's where this lets him down a little bit, that we didn't get to see enough of Derek Jacobi as the Master. I'd be really interested in going back and listening to some of his Big Finish productions. I've never listened to Big Finish, and that is something I would like to do at some point. But at this stage, I've not listened to anything, and I think it would be interesting to see some of those ones that feature Derek Jacobi as the War Master. And that is something I may do at some point in the future. If you've listened to any of the Big Finish, and you have any that you think is really worth reviewing, or at least just listening to, even if I don't do anything on the channel, please do drop a comment down below and let me know what you think I should listen to. Now, your other two main supporting characters in this episode is Chantho and Captain Jack Harkness, returning to the TARDIS crew. And if you missed it, I did a review yesterday of the Season 1 finale of Torchwood, so please do go back and check that one out. But Jack here, in this episode, he didn't feel like Torchwood Jack. He felt like Captain Jack. You know, the same Captain Jack that we experienced in Season 1 of Doctor Who. And it's interesting as a character how the two series can really treat him really differently. And I may do a comparison video at some point in the future, you know, kind of comparing Torchwood Jack and Doctor Who Jack. Because at times he does feel like two very different characters. But in this episode, he was everything you wanted. He was charming. He was swashbuckling. He was an action hero. And the interaction that he had with Martha and David Tennant was just brilliant. Everything you could have hoped for and more. Now, Chantho as a character, she, in one regards, felt a little bit tacked on and a little bit of an afterthought, while at the same time being a companion type role. You know, she is basically the Martha to the Master. Although, of course, we don't realise that it is the Master, and she doesn't know that she's kind of serving the Master. The whole Chantho thing did get a little bit annoying, you know, where she's saying Chan and Tho at the end of every sentence. And I think that was kind of done on purpose a little bit, to show a little bit of the darker side of the Master. Again, you know, when it's with Professor Yana, he just gets on with it. Although there was one little bit where he kind of interrupts her when someone says something to Chantho and Professor Yana interrupts her.
Tan, it is said that I am the last of my species too, though.
Sorry, what was your name?
My assistant and good friend, Chantho.
That, I think, is the one subtle nod that the Master is kind of aware of the situation, and that personality is just subconsciously coming through. But the thing that bugged me the most was that whole tiny little scene that she had with Martha, where Martha talks about why she says Chantho, and, you know, in a way that if she didn't say that with every sentence, it would be rude and almost tantamount to swearing. And every time I watch this episode, it's the bit after the Master turns and is slowly approaching her with the electric cable and is going to kill her, you know, and she calls him Professor Yana. He says, "That is not my name!" There is that moment where she is so terrified, and she asks him,
Then who are you?
that for me would have been the perfect payoff to that earlier conversation with Martha if she, rather than saying Chan, but who are you though, if she had just simply said, who are you? That for me would put into context how terrified that she is, that she is literally swearing because she is that terrified. We've all been in there, in a situation where we're frustrated or angry or upset, and, you know, you just subconsciously swear a little bit more than you probably normally would, where you drop the F-bomb or, you know, other curse words. And that, I think, would have been such a perfect and tiny little thing. And I think that was just a little bit of a missed opportunity. Now, of course, Doctor and Martha, great as always. Martha, I felt, was a little bit more side character, because I think the episode was focusing so heavily on Yana and, of course, the return of Captain Jack, that it just, she just got sidelined a little bit. The stuff she did was great, but I think she was just sidelined just a little bit. But the Doctor, he had some amazing dialogue moments in this one. It wasn't very action heavy for him, but all the pieces of dialogue I felt was delivered perfectly, with the right weight of emotion behind every bit of line and everything in this episode, whether it's to Jack, whether it's to Yana, to Martha. I think a lot of people think that the acting went a tiny bit overboard when Martha is saying to the Doctor that Professor Yana has this watch, this fob watch, and she basically thinks he's another Time Lord. And when David Tennant, as the Doctor, gets really angry.
What did he say, Mother? What did he say?
I think a lot of people felt that that was just, a little bit too much. I disagree. I think that was a perfect amount of emotional reaction, because we've already seen it earlier this season in Gridlock. The way that the Doctor gets so emotional at the idea that he is the last of the Time Lords, the fact that there may be one more should make you feel so emotional and so elated. Yet he kind of probably already knows exactly who it is. He knows that there's probably only one Time Lord who is determined enough and maybe manipulative enough to be able to survive the Time War and survive at the end of the universe. And that's why he gets so angry. Now, when it comes to me doing my scoring in this episode, the villains are going to get a bit of a lower score. And the reason I say that is because I don't really think of the Master in this episode to be the villain. He is, a factor in me giving it probably a bit of a higher score than I would do ordinarily, but he's not the villain. The villains of this piece are the Future Kind. And they're a race or villain or monster that I just feel were needless. They didn't need to be there in this episode. The fact that you are on a planet at the very end of time itself, that is enough to give you a threat. The fact that you have got these people on a planet where there are no stars left in the sky, where it should be cold and you shouldn't be able to survive on the surface of the planet, that is a threat. So to have these Future Kind people who are cannibals, if you like, with the stupid pointed teeth and the way that they speak, I'm hungry, I want to eat you. It was just cheesy and, like I said, pointless. You could have done all of the stuff that they were there to do without having them as an extra. And that's all I'm going to really say on them. The design of them were pretty good, apart from the whole teeth thing. Especially that one who manages to get into the base. When they're so insistent on, show me your teeth, show me your teeth. How the hell did she manage to get past them guards? Either she did something afterwards and got those teeth afterwards, maybe converted while she was in there, or the guards are just ridiculously bad at their jobs. Now, the music in this episode is absolutely fantastic, and you have a lot of the normal instrumental stuff, which has been a bit of a recurring theme throughout this season. But this is where you get the first introduction to the masterpiece that is This Is Gallifrey. And this is an amazing piece of music. It really is. And you don't get enough of it in this episode. You get to hear it properly in the next episode. But the times that you hear it, it's so perfectly placed, because it is every time Professor Yana hears something that is just triggering his Gallifreyan mind and the subconscious of the Master. And the fact that they utilise a great piece of music, which is all about Gallifrey, but they use it in a very clever way, I think that is just genius. And I don't know whether that was a choice of the writer or the director or whoever it was, but it was brilliant. And it's a great piece of music that I think is so worth a listen to in full from the soundtrack. I do want to speak about the set, because the one subtle thing that I noticed in this episode that I've never really noticed before when watching this episode is how when you're within the silo, a lot of the rooms that they are in and the corridors, if you look past all of the doors or the equipment that they have, you see that it's a sort of a rocky tunnel. And so it's very clear that they are in this rocky environment and they've basically made this place out of the nature, and they've just happened to have put all the stuff in there. It's something I've just never picked up on before, but I really love that little attention to detail. Now, the other thing I want to talk about very briefly is something that has always bugged me, that they went to the extent of making sure they had a visualization of Captain Jack right at the start of the episode, clinging to the outside of the TARDIS as it goes through the time vortex. And of course they had to edit the title sequence to include John Barrowman's name in there. Why the hell then, in that title sequence, when you see the TARDIS all flying around, why the hell didn't you just do it for a one-off episode, change it so that all the way through that you literally see Captain Jack clinging to the TARDIS? I think that would have been such a great little thing, and I think that's a wasted opportunity. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a damn fine episode. But I do have to score the episode. Now, if you have never seen any of my Doctor Who reviews before, then I'll just explain that I give each episode a score out of 100, which is made up by scoring 10 categories, a score out of 10. And that's how I use it to rank these episodes in the future. But for right now, let's see my scores for Utopia. And so that means that Utopia has scored 76 marks out of 100. And that makes it a B+ episode. What are your thoughts of this episode? Drop your comments down below. You can now see the full season review of Torchwood. I've done a review for every single episode. And you can go back, check out all of my other Doctor Who reviews. I've done them all the way from Rose, and I've done a few Doctor Who ranking videos as well. But for now, my name's Kevin. I am a geek, and you've been watching Kevin the Geek. Goodbye.